I love the quote by Napoleon Hill. It's whatever the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. That was kind of my mantra when I was looking at building my company. And at the time, I was searching for all of the different companies. And I really wanted to be an entrepreneur and build something of my own, something that I could, in 5-10 years. Now we're looking at almost 11-12 years with my company, something I could be very proud of.
Because the management and transparency is what's very important. So once you submit a referral, you're going to have your own Home Advantage account, and it's going to tell you where everything sits. So if you have 10 referrals that you've sent into the network, it's going to give you all 10 referrals. It's going to tell you every milestone that client is sitting in, whether they're touring homes, whether they're in escrow. And you now can manage through the Home Advantage application as far as what your pipeline looks like for the referrals that you've sent. And so it's pretty sophisticated, and it's all click of a button, guys.
And today we're thrilled to welcome Rachelle Willhite of Best Choice Realty in Seattle. Today she's in Spokane, but this is where she's based out of. She started in 2002 as a solo agent, and then she went on to start a solo brokerage in 2012, where she scaled her business to now an astonishing 500 plus brokers and 10 offices. And this all has to do with a lot of our strategic use of Real Geeks. And so as you guys are joining us today, if you're contemplating growing your real estate business, or if you're curious about what it takes to scale successfully, this episode is a must watch. We're going to dive into Rachelle's journey, her strategies, and the lessons she's learned along the way. So welcome everybody, and welcome Rachelle.
Thank you, Trenton. It's good to be with you.
I appreciate it. It looks like we have a few different people across the United States here. We got from Texas to California to Virginia Beach, Knoxville, Brockton, Massachusetts. Oh, we got even a Seattle there with Susan as well.
Wonderful.
So that's exciting. So as we get kind of started here, let's go back to the roots where it all began as a solo agent. So if we take us back to 2002, what were your initial challenges that you kind of faced that helped you lead into today's business?
Well, I started with a company. I actually was with the biggest company in Washington at the time, and it was up and coming, and it was one of the top in market share. I won't name any names, but it was the top market share in our area, and it was very old school. And I was a young teenager at the time, and so I was looking for something a bit more progressive that utilized technology. And so in 2002, when I did get my real estate license, I joined Zip Realty. It's been traded, it's been merged, it's no longer in existence. I know the technology still exists out there. But yes, I did work in that environment for about 10 years. So I had the opportunity of traveling across the nation, working for that corporation. It was a company very much like a Redfin company, where it was an employee-based model. And I worked a lot of internet leads. So I learned a lot about Yahoo. When we were buying Yahoo leads, we were buying all kinds of different sources and testing and piloting online lead generation. So that was my base or my foundation. And what I learned, Tristan, is that, and Trenton, is that being a young entrepreneur in a very, very tech centric area of the country, there were certain habits that I had to have and systems that were needed and essential to be successful. And then ultimately, it was my customer service that kind of led me to the point where it's like, I want to run more of a service-based business rather than utilize 100% of my time with lead generation in that kind of technology corporate company. So that's kind of when I formed Best Choice Realty in 2012.
Excellent. Well, that's awesome. So as you started your own brokerage there, what kind of, made you want to start that as you kind of were going through that journey?
Yes. So there was a lot of real estate companies out there in the area of Seattle. There's many independents, franchises, corporations, very diverse backgrounds too. And that's what made it really fun to open up and kind of think about what I wanted to build. And I love the quote by Napoleon Hill. It said, whatever the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. That was kind of my mantra when I was looking at building my company. And at the time, I was searching for all of the different companies. And I really wanted to be an entrepreneur and build something of my own, something that I could, in 5-10 years. Now we're looking at almost 11, 12 years with my company, something I could be very proud of, something that I could control, that would give me the ability to give good service, keep my overhead very low, leverage technology, provide opportunities for, people that I associated myself with, and it allowed me to scale. I didn't want to just be a simple solo agent. I had bigger goals for myself at that time.
Definitely. Well, that's very exciting. Was there a specific moment or realization that really made you want to start that process?
Yeah, it started my thought process. I was working for Zip Realty at the time, and I was also managing for them. So I was doing that in 2011. And there was a client of mine who was going through cancer treatments. He was dying, and I had to go through like 5 layers of corporate red tape to get an approval to make an adjustment on my compensation. And it was very frustrating. The client actually ended up dying in the process. And so I was unable to give back to the family in the way that I wanted to because of all the corporate red tape. And I thought, you know what, if I could create my own lead generation, if I could build my own company and associate myself with and make those decisions on my own when they are appropriate, I'd obviously have a better business model. And so that was one of the kind of, I would say, pivotal moments that made me start thinking about, can I control, what kind of allocations, what kind of resources, how that customer is handled and supported? Can that be possible in the Seattle market that's saturated with all kinds of business models and all different walks of life? And so it was built from more of a customer service angle. Like, can I just go out on my own? And can my husband join? So my husband actually joined my company right off the bat. He got his real estate license too, and was like, let's just do this together. And I learned really fast that having a relationship that can change. So luckily we're still together. And but it was a rough patch, I would say, as I was scaling, as being married and having a partner who was also licensed. We had to learn to get along with each other and build the model, and he supported me with some of the ideas that we had set up as well. So there was definitely challenges early on when I formed the company.
Oh, well, that's really awesome to hear about that, that you can have that partner in life to be able to help out with that as well and kind of, take that journey together.
Yeah.
During those early days, were there any lessons that you learned that maybe still influence how you operate today?
Yeah. So when my husband, he again worked with me for the first couple of years, and we had one office at that time, and my dad was the CFO, so he was the one that was running the finances. So I had obviously in-house support from my family, and then my dad got cancer, pretty bad stage 4 cancer, and that was in 2016. So I was like 4 years in the making of my company. And so it's super pivotal because I was really frustrated with some of the decisions I was making. I'm very hard on myself, because I want to make things right. I'm one of those leaders that's really not satisfied. And I am always challenging my own personal thought on how I can make it something better. And so I was leveraging my staff at the time. I had a part-time transaction coordinator. I had an inside sales rep. I had a part-time recruiter, and I was working with a local school, Highline Community College. They had an internship program. So I actually was having an intern help me with my marketing and design at the time. So, that was the beginning of like the first 4 years of building a business on your own and having a lot of part-time help and then dealing with, some bad news with my dad's getting stage 4 cancer and going, oh my gosh. And then to top it all off, I found out I was pregnant with a surprise baby. So here's baby, I'm expecting a baby and building the business at the time. About 3 or 4 years in, we had close to 100 real estate agents at the time. And realizing like, I can't do this all on my own. I'm going to have to leverage. I'm going to have to maybe invest more in paying for more full-time help, so that I wasn't reliant on just part-time, where I would have much more turnover. Certainly wanted to consider what my strengths were and what my weaknesses were. And I wanted to find people that could essentially give me that, the other half. So if I'm a good leader and I'm really hard on myself and I'm really driven and I make decisions and I need somebody to kind of think more, analytical, that type of thing, I wanted to find an operations manager that could really support me on that side of things. So those types of conversations were happening in the company as I was making some decisions. My dad did pass away in 2017. And when he passed away, we had expanded into 2 more locations. But with that expansion, we also added to our staff. So I was able to have a baby, and my husband stepped away. He actually left the operation to be a full-time dad. And then I was able to really progress with some of the goals that we had set for the company in scaling in that way.
Awesome. Well, that sounds like quite the journey there. And it sounds as if like the process of your expanding your team didn't quite go the way you wanted it to go. And so that's pretty impressive that you were able to still continue to grow with all those challenges that you did end up facing. I'm curious, you kind of mentioned some of the stopping points that you had throughout the road there. Was there any different challenges, as you grew to 10 offices? What were some of those logistical and operational challenges that you ended up facing? You kind of mentioned some of the, the personal things that kind of stepped through, but was there any other operational challenges that you ended up facing that would help others, during this time as well?
Yes. So having that growth mindset definitely comes with challenges. But if you focus on the people of the business, the people are really important. And I think that's one of my strengths, is that I'm able to work with close staff and help them with not only their real estate goals, their relationships. It's all important in building character or building culture within a team or within a brokerage. And really putting the people first. I think that was one of the things I learned early on, was, having part-time and people coming and going as they please. It becomes very challenging to manage that type of workflow. But by having committed people, so we started doing, definitely I'm very big about the DISC profile. So any employee that I bring in, we want to do a very thorough interview. I follow up. I do a lot of intense negotiation and background checks to make sure that the person that we put into that role is the person that we want. And then also when I'm recruiting real estate agents to my team or to our brokerage or to the office, we really want to focus on their strengths. And we want to kind of go back to some of the early things I learned about managing, which is, understanding, helping a broker understand what they have to do, because a lot of them come in from all walks of life, various, family challenges, different backgrounds, religious backgrounds, different ways of handling their business. And so if I'm able to get kind of a baseline by doing a profile and then really spending time with them in the onboarding process and figuring out what their goals would be, I learned that early on as a leader, to really understand and then help somebody believe in what they're doing is going to have success. And then the part that I think a lot of leaders miss out on is that once that agent or that employee understand and you've really helped them believe in the culture of what you're setting forth, then there is the tough part, and it's the accountability part. And I think that many people they hire an assistant, right, Trenton, and they start adding agents and they kind of get out of control and they kind of spiral because that person maybe understands what their day-to-day have to, what their job description is or what they're supposed to do, but they never really believe that the leader is helping them grow their business. There's that lack of trust that exists. And then all of a sudden the leader, maybe I'm talking to some of those people that I know out there in the Seattle area, they never hold them accountable. They kind of wonder why that assistant or that employee went a different direction or decided to join a different team or a different firm. And so I think what happens is they lose sight of just that fundamental understanding, then the belief, and then holding that employee or agent accountable. Sometimes they may hold them accountable way too soon, maybe early on in their first 30 days. And you've got to give people time to adjust to your leadership style and also learn how to grow within a brokerage. So our retention is really high, Trenton. I work with people. I give them some grace that's warranted sometimes, and that kind of goes a long way. That builds trust and belief in a culture that you're growing. So that's kind of some things I learned along the way. And I learned basically I've had to fire a graphic designer. I had a fraudulent employee. I had an employee that was that lied on her application. So I've gone through those things, and a lot of those types of incidents created systems and processes that I now use on a regular basis and consistently to grow in the way I've grown now.
That's incredible. I mean, your process there, especially from onboarding, to the first 30 to 60 days, seems to be like spot on. Definitely people that are watching, think about different ways that you can incorporate some of those things that she just mentioned here, because Rachelle really seems to have it in place, especially if we're able to grow that large of a team. Couple questions regarding recruitment here. One from Rashonda: do you require the office personnel to be licensed or pursuing a license?
That's a good question. And we started out with not having a license. And as we've grown, obviously there's a need because we get leads that come into our offices. We've had walk-ins, in fact. And so it is much more helpful now with the size of brokerage that I'm running to have that or aspiring to get that real estate license. Depends on the role, right? If we're looking for inside sales, it's definitely helpful to have them licensed so that they can talk more about real estate. But that's a double-edged sword because also that lifespan, if they're licensed and they're an inside sales agent, for example, that lifespan, they'll at some point want to, move on and do their own thing. They'll get to a rhythm where they want to kind of go out and do their own thing. So I would say that it depends on the position, but, it's certainly I'm bringing on, in fact, I just signed another person to our accounting team, and she happens to be at Keller Williams right now, and she's licensed in Washington and Oregon. So I looked at all of the candidates I was bringing into my inside circle, and I'm like, she really stood out as far as having the license, but also having the experiences that I'm looking for that particular position in the company. So early on, I don't think it was as important as just finding a good cultural fit. But as I've grown, definitely you want to consider somebody that might aspire to get the real estate license if you are growing a real estate company.
I appreciate that. We have one other one here from Stephanie on Facebook. What is your model? Are you guys a split model or a transaction-based model? And if you want to
Great question. I worked in the corporation Zip Realty. It was an employee model that turned into an independent contractor model in around 2010-11 after Zip Realty went public. So I learned a lot about different real estate models, employee model versus a contractor model. Full service, Zip Realty, I used to recruit 100% of nothing is still nothing. And we provided all of the leads and resources that an agent would need to be very successful. We at one time paid for medical and dental and all of the things that a real estate agent needs. But we would take the bulk of the percentage. So the real estate agent would make very, very little. And when I opened my own company, I decided it was the brokerage model. I hate to say this, but the brokerage model of the traditional days when I joined real estate back in 2002 is really dead. We have all of these tools that are super, super accessible to everyone, such as LabCoatAgents, Real Geeks, tech tools, technology, webcam. Back in the day when I was opening my own company, we were doing webinars that were not even webinars. They were more, on the phone, audio only. So as I've grown, it's been interesting to see that, that's not necessary to have a split model, like where you're making 50-50. Now, certainly I think a mentorship warrants that, but my model is definitely a 100% company where you pay the brokerage a flat fee for services. But difference is that I used to come from that background where there was a lot of support. So can you provide support, systems, technology, all of that for a flat rate of the brokerage? And I would say yes, because of the way we leverage technology.
Awesome. Thank you. So I want to take a couple steps back here. As far as the recruitment process goes, how are you guys doing the recruitment? Are you guys doing some lead generation? Are people just coming to you guys? And then in what areas are you guys recruiting in consistently?
Well, I don't want to grow too big too fast, right? That is one thing you want to think about as you're expanding or growing, is sometimes you can, and I've seen other leaders make these mistakes as well. They grow they go too national, or they go to too many market areas, and then they don't have the support, and then the agents start to lose sense of the culture within the company. I've seen that firsthand. So as I'm growing and recruiting, I am using tools like technology. You wouldn't believe it, but we do use Craigslist. We do use social media. We do place ads. We do have a website. We do leverage those types of sources. And then I do pay for a recruiter that recruits. I had a choice when I was trying to recruit and grow. I could either have my agents basically through a revenue share program, which many 100% companies use, right? They have some sort of, you get a percentage of, you refer Johnny to the brokerage, you get a piece of the pie or the piece of the action. And I didn't want to go that route. So I had to essentially scale, and I hired an employee that works for Best Choice Realty as a recruiter. And he's the one that makes the appointments. He sets the appointments. He works with me closely to determine whether we want to bring in the brokers that we want to bring in. So it's a selection process. We don't bring in everybody. That's a little bit different than some of my competitors in this space, is that they have to go very much, headcount driven versus having a selection process. But that's for our recruiting. That's what we do at Best Choice, is we have a paid recruiter that does that type of work.
Awesome. You mentioned Real Geeks a couple times. I'm curious, how did you come across them? And then, what made you decide that it was the right platform to scale your business?
Well, coming from Zip Realty, that had a very robust, for the time of the year and what they grew and what they built, I needed something that was as much all encompassing as possible, as far as like lead generation, connected to the website, had the pictures that would show up in my client's inbox, of the potential properties that were coming on the market. At the time, it was like, other companies were owned by Zillow, and there was a lot of movement, especially in the Seattle region. And so I was looking for something that was more of the outsider approach, that was consumer based and definitely agent driven. And Jeff Manson was running a good program out there in Hawaii. And I reached out to him and got set up initially with Real Geeks. And it actually doesn't look too much different than what it looks like now. In fact, they've cleaned up and made it even prettier than but the fundamentals are there. And what's important about technology is that there's fundamentals. Number one, it's got to be very simple to use. I don't want to train a program that you have to go through like a week-long training and you're watching like 25 videos. Real Geeks is intuitive enough so that you actually can learn it kind of by just importing your list, and just, there's very, very easy buttons. It's not difficult. And that was one of the reasons I chose Real Geeks, was because of the simplicity, but also because of how it connected with the front end website. So there was a back end that connected to a front end website. And then the consumers, it was much more what they call in our world tacky, where it's easy for them to enter the portal, put in their information, and then alternatively communicate with the agent behind the scenes so that it was more of a relationship or connection with that client. And then it could be followed up, and you could schedule different times when you could follow up. And what I liked about Jeff was that he didn't fall into the trap that some of those others, where they went like super aggressive and then got blacklisted, or I don't know what they call it. Basically, they couldn't even get their emails out, right? I mean, that's what 2012 and 13 and 14 look like, is email deliverability was a challenge. And that was all very much what Jeff and his team worked on in the early days of Real Geeks. And so with that, I think what happened is Real Geeks got a lot of really good attention from the Google gods. I like to say, Google gives you ranked and all of that ranking. And so for SEO, Real Geeks was constantly getting us ranked really high with what we were doing. And I think with SEO, this is where, as a new owner, or maybe you're running a small team and you're maybe using Real Geeks, you're kind of like, oh, maybe it's not working for me. I'd really, encourage you to kind of look at the alternatives, because the alternatives don't rank very well. And then you're going to be bombarded with people telling you, hey, for this amount of money, I'll get your SEO up. And I have never had to do that type of work. So I can really kind of shut the SEO companies down by not going that way, because that Real Geeks has really made a good foundation. Sure, it could be prettier, it could have a little bit more bells and whistles, but at a fundamental core of what Real Geeks, it was designed by real estate agents like me. It was built, the consumers like it because it provides the pretty pictures, and some of that clutter is not needed, honestly, with some of those other programs.
I would have to agree there, especially with having that simplicity, easy to use. And you're right, it doesn't need to have all the bells and whistles, as long as it can provide what you need for the customer,
Right.
for your team, as far as the website building and things like that. We've been using Real Geeks for a while now. We try to test out pretty much all the CRMs, but we've been getting some really good quality leads here in the last couple of weeks, as far as customers that are using your site, returning to the site, saving properties, things of that nature as well.
Mhm.
How has Real Geeks helped you in retaining clients? Are they doing any support there for you guys?
Yes, we do pay for real leads. So they have a team of people that place the ads. So I have outsourced in that way. So I'm not having an inside person. My marketing and design manager, that is not her strength. And so when you're managing people, obviously in your inside circle, you look at playing on their strengths and not on their weaknesses. And so instead of, leveraging my internal staff to do some of the work, I've paid for contractor work like Real Geeks. And they have a team of people that basically do all of the ad placement, that do the piloting, that test it, and that deliver up those leads into our portal. And I have had to create ponds where our agents then, go and fish in the pond, so that they can, grab and nab those leads. And then as far as converting them, we have trainings that we support our agents on knowing how to convert. What are the best strategies? What are the emails? What is the workflows look like that have the highest conversion? And honestly, sometimes it's just picking up the phone and calling, right? And I think that there's something to be said about that, rather than having maybe your inside sales, but having that agent that's actually going to work that lead, make those phone calls. We've actually seen more conversion on that recently.
Excellent. We do have a question dropped in here in the chat from Samara. How much did you hire the recruiter for when you first started, and what were the key characteristics you had them look for when they're looking for new talent?
So I won't give you the exact. I mean, it was initially the recruiter, and it was a part-time recruiter at the time. She was paid just hourly, actually, when I first started. Now that's a salaried position and it's full-time with our company, but initially it was part-time and it was hourly based, minimum wage actually, but with bonuses when the appointments converted. So that's kind of how we structured it initially. Now it's salary, but appointments confirmed, also bonus. It seems to work well with a recruiter. But to initially, when we onboard a recruiter or we're interviewing a recruiter, we want to make sure that they are not afraid of the phone. So that person has got to be really on the first interview, be comfortable, confident talking with people, so that I can work and coach them through some of the questions that they may encounter and the objections, quite frankly, that's out there. So need a quick learner. Definitely doesn't have to have a real estate license. I've trained and coached recruiters that do not have a real estate license, but they have to be super, super skilled at the phone and handling objections.
Excellent. No, great response there. As we're kind of about to wrap it up here, I'd love to hear a few final words of wisdom from you, with all your experience here over the last 20 years, 500 agents, 10 different offices. If you could share one piece of wisdom with our audience today, what would it be?
If you're wanting to create something, you've got to really think about the people that you're working with, and really surround yourself with people that think maybe it's like surround yourself with smarter people in the room, I think. And that's what's been nice. So, I surrounded myself with my father when he was still living. Obviously he had much more of a financial aspect of running a business because he was a CFO. So I surrounded myself with him. And then once he passed away, I had to find those other people that also could complement some of the things that I was lacking as a leader. And so surround yourself with the smartest person in the room, I would say. Definitely soak up all the knowledge that you possibly can. I've read books. One of my most favorite ones as I was growing, was Traction. I mean, that's an old one, but it's a really good one of growing, and scaling. So really absorb, knowledge. I think that's key. And then create an environment where people want to come in and work with you. I think too many people get, they let the environment around them determine their kind of how they're going to show up and their day. Check that out at the door and really come to work or come to your office, your situation, your team, your brokerage, whatever you're looking to grow, with a really positive mindset, and really kind of think outside the box and surround yourself with people that, maybe are not like you, and learn how to work with those types of personality types.
Excellent. Well, that was an awesome answer there. I want to thank you, Rachelle, for sharing your incredible journey and insights with us today. Keep in mind, everybody in the chat, Jake has provided a link to Real Geeks. They're offering a free demo plus $1 sign-up fee exclusively for LabCoatAgents here today. For anybody looking to, dive deeper into scaling a real estate business, make sure to rewatch this episode. Rachelle, if you want to put your email in there or wherever they can connect with you, maybe it's on social, in case they have any other further questions, drop that into the chat.
Definitely. Because we're not a franchise, we actually look for people across the nation to refer business to. So I would love to be a resource for you in the Washington region. But if you are working in another part of the area of the country and maybe using Real Geeks and want to, do referrals, we definitely handle referrals very, very well, and would love to connect. So thank you so much.
Awesome, everybody. There's her email down at the bottom of the chat. Actually, let me drop this into everybody really quick. For you guys to reach out to Rachelle if you have any questions about growing your team, any questions about Real Geeks, or if you just want to chat and find out some more information from her, that'd be great. Contact her there. But thank you everybody for joining. Hope you guys had a great time today, and looking forward to see you guys on the next call.
Thank you so much, Trenton. See you later.
All right, see you, Rachelle.